Hello, this is George Grammas from Squire Patton Boggs, back with you again to provide the second quarter update covering the period of April through June 2024 to the U.S. Sanctions and Embargoes training materials for content enablers. I'm joined today with my colleague from Squire Patton Boggs, Jeremy Painter. I'm going to start off and then turn it over to Jeremy. I want to cover the developments that were related to Cuba and Iran. And specifically, these changes were made in response to repeated requests from individuals or organizations seeking to provide internet-related services to those countries. And this was consistent with the policies of OFAC to allow the free flow of information to the people in Cuba and Iran. They're very similar changes, but really you'll have to take a look at the specifics in each case because the wording is a little different. But generally, the idea is to allow certain internet-based services to occur without a license. These are related to the exportation or re-exportation directly or indirectly from the United States or by U.S. persons related to social media platforms, the collaborative platforms, video conferencing, e-gaming or e-learning systems, automated translation, web maps, and other types of services, but also the ability to export and re-export other items that are necessary or incidental to providing those services, like software that improves the free flow of the information and would support private sector activities. Again, it's very similar in both sets of regulations, but the list of eligible services and the software that can be exported is described slightly different between the two. So take a look before you elect to proceed. The other development is that the provisions for the Syrian sanctions, which had been found in numerous locations, have been codified under the Syrian sanctions regulations to make it more manageable or easier for you to read and comply. This isn't a change in the regulations, but just a change in how it is presented and available to you through OFAC's website. All right, let me turn it over to Jeremy.
Great, thanks, George. So in the second quarter of this year, the most important changes were really effective specifically to financial institutions, but there are a number of noteworthy developments we wanted to discuss with you briefly today. So these developments are in response to the U.S. government's assessment that the Russian economy has fully converted to a wartime economy. What that means is that it's the policy of the United States at this point to really clamp down on Russia's the government of Russia's sources of revenue, as it's using that revenue in furtherance of its war in Ukraine. So the first two determinations you see on your screen from February 8th of this year are specific to diamonds. Now, the U.S. Initially prohibited the importation of diamonds within a few weeks after the start of the war, but that importation ban was specific to Russian origin diamonds, and the Russian government is very dependent on its diamond industry that it completely controls for a substantial amount of its revenue. Now, the initial prohibition was limited to Russian origin diamonds, and very few Russian diamonds would be, as a matter of law, of Russian origin. That's because after they're extracted, they are cut and polished generally in India, which would mean that the Russian diamonds are no longer Russian diamonds, but are rather of Indian origin and would not fall under the prohibition as it existed prior to February 8th. So OFAC closed that loophole on February 8th by prohibiting diamonds that were mined, extracted, produced, or manufactured in Russia, notwithstanding whether such diamonds have been substantially transformed, which again would cover those diamonds cut and polished in India or the UAE or anywhere else, frankly. That same day, OFAC made a determination that prohibits diamond jewelry and unsorted diamonds exported from Russia, irrespective of the origin of those. If the diamonds come from Russia, that's prohibited for importation into the United States. The Russian government also gets a lot of revenue from its metal sector, specifically aluminum, copper, and nickel. So in April, OFAC issued a determination prohibiting the importation of Russian origin aluminum, copper, and nickel produced after the date after the determination. So the production date being after April 13th. Now, it's important to note that that prohibition is limited to Russian origin metal, the specific metal that I referenced. That means that products that are made out of Russian origin aluminum outside of Russia that have been substantially transformed into different products would not fall under this importation ban. And we've seen this come up several times with Chinese-based suppliers that source their metal from Russia. And the question would be, okay, if we are importing fasteners or bolts made of Russian origin aluminum, is that an issue? And as a strict matter of law, an importation of a Chinese-produced fastener or bolt made of Russian aluminum would not be prohibited by this determination. That's not to say that your bank wouldn't have questions about it, that your shipper or freight forwarders wouldn't pose questions to you about that shipment, but as of now, that would not be prohibited by this determination. And then in June, most recently in June, OFAC issued a determination that prohibits the provision of certain kinds of software, right? And it's IT consultancy and design services and IT support services and cloud-based services for the following kinds of software. And that's enterprise management software and design and manufacturing software. And then in a separate FAQ, OFAC provided definitions. Unfortunately, those definitions are not actually in the determination or currently in OFAC regulations. So you're going to have to look at the actual FAQ to find how OFAC interprets those terms. But you can see enterprise management software and design and manufacturing software are defined under those categories. Most relevant for you probably would be the ERP or the supply chain management software, as well as the CAD software. Now, with with these, with the service prohibition, OFAC also has the exceptions and exemptions that it has generally carried across its other services prohibitions. So this prohibition would not cover services to entities in Russia that are owned or controlled by a U.S. person. So a subsidiary in Russia of a U.S. company can receive these services and software from the United States. And secondly, OFAC has said that if BIS has provided either a license or authorization for the provision of those software services, that OFAC would not prohibit them. And lastly, some of the broad authorizations that carve out a lot of Russia-related sanctions are also applicable to this prohibition, and most notably the agricultural and medicine and medical device GL, which is in the Russia-related program, General License 6D, would actually authorize the provision of these services or software if they relate to agricultural commodities, medicine or medical devices related to Russia. So that is a very broad authorization for food, medicine, but that's in furtherance of OFAC's ongoing policy that the U.S. Russia-related sanctions are not to target food and medicine relating to Russia. And with that, I'll give George any final words.
Thanks everyone for joining us for this brief recap of the developments in the second quarter. We'll be back again with the third quarter report soon. And if there's any questions, feel free to let us know. And so for myself, George Gramis, and Jeremy Painter, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.